Hi, it's been a while, so I've decided to finally make a video on how I shade my drawings. I apologize for in the first half of this. I originally recorded it in the wrong size, so when I tried to recorrect it in Sony Vegas, it kind of lost a lot of quality. However, the second half is perfectly fine, and that's the half you really need the quality on anyway. For this, I'm going to be drawing my OC Nate, since I needed to draw him anyway. Please keep in mind that this tutorial will be different with what drawing program you use. I personally use Medibang Paint Pro. It should work for the app version too, so this will be best suited to that. First, we start off with our base colors, which should be easy enough to do. Next, we get a light purplish color and start shading using the pen tool. Keep in mind to be aware of your light source. I usually have it go down from the top right corner and slightly in front in most of my drawings. Also, keep in mind to be aware of how much you're shading for this layer. Don't go too far out on the image with your shading, or too heavy with it. When you're done, you go to the blending mode selector. On most programs, it's right next to the layers. In Medibang, it's directly below the opacity bar. Turn it to multiply, then adjust the opacity to about 50%. Of course, this can be changed to fit the mood of your image and the colors. Then duplicate the layer. This can be done by either pressing the duplicate button, or just simply doing Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V on Windows. However, you will have to redo the layer settings. Now go to the opacity bar and turn it down. You may have to adjust both layer settings to find the one you like. Once you're done, take the same color from before and start shading outwards. I generally call this the light or soft shading layer. It's to give the shading less harsh colors and make it blend easier. Shade normally, however, feel free to be a bit adventurous and go out farther than you usually would. Once you're done, make a new layer. This step can be done before or after step 5. However, in this speed paint, I happen to have done it beforehand. So I'm editing this video together, and it turns out past me wasn't paying close enough attention and swapped step 5 and step 4 around. 1 to 2. I swapped it around, and the blue comes after the blur. So if this looks really weird or sounds really weird, then that's because you can blame past me for being super tired at 11 at night, or 2 in the morning, I forgot when. Take a light blue, slightly desaturated. Now go around the piece and find areas that have a lot of darkness, or a dark with light connected behind it, such as the back of the hair, and put very little blue. With this, you don't want to go over the top. Once you're done, grab the airbrush and turn it to transparent, then turn the opacity down to about 10%. Now go to the blue you shaded and make the edges of it not against a line, airbrushed out and smooth. I personally prefer to leave a bit of the rough edge so that it isn't too airbrushed. Once you're done, turn the color back to the blue and very lightly go around the far edge of the drawing or over things that are far away perspective-wise. Once you're done with all that, go to the opacity slider and turn the layer far down. How you do it depends on what you think looks nice. I usually hang around the 30 to 50% range. Now temporarily hide your blue layer and make a new layer above the first 2 layers of shading and below the blue. Take your watercolor brush and set it to about 7% and start going around the piece, smoothing out areas that might be too rough or adding some shading to farther away parts. This is good for making the shading less harsh, and you can usually add more subtle shadows and remove the shadows that are too strong. Keep in mind the light source. I usually refer to this layer as the blur layer. Make 2 new layers below the blue but above the blur layer, and grab a light desaturated yellow. Now go back to the pen brush and select the bottom layer of the 2, then move up to the hair. Start making small shines in the hair coming from the direction of the light. You can turn off the shadow layers for this, as you don't need to keep in mind where the shadows are directly, just where the light hits. Once you have the bottom layer done, go to the color section and turn the yellow to a slight orange. Then go over some of the yellow you had just done in the brightest parts where the light would be shining the most. When you're done, you go to the blending mode and turn it to add. Then turn the opacity to about 35%, or whichever percentage you prefer. These two settings can be changed as you feel fit. You can show any layers you had hidden at this point. Now for the final parts. You can either use a watercolor brush or an airbrush for this. Add some light shining on your piece coming from the light source, giving it some more depth. You can either go as crazy with this as you'd like. Just keep in mind where the shadows are. Once you are done, go to the blending modes and change the layer to add, and turn it to about 10%. You can change this depending on your preferences. If it's too rough, I would recommend going to the blur section on wherever it is in your program, and blurring the rough edges a bit. It adds a lot, trust me. First, change your brush to pen sharp. Secondly, grab the light shading color directly off the piece, not from the color selector, and make a new layer above the line art. Now make some small hair strands to add some more detail. You can do as many as you'd like. Once you're done, select your line art layer and turn on Protect Alpha. This will make it so you can't draw outside the line art already done. Take your eyedropper tool and select the darkest shade on whichever part you choose, and go slightly darker. Now go over the line art for that part with that color. Then repeat with each section of the drawing, for example the hair, skin, clothing, etc., with the respective colors. And ta-da! You're done! Of course you can add or change things as you feel necessary, but this is what I generally follow, with some changes to which order I do some of the parts in. I've left the entire thing in the description. It's a little bit of a mess, but I've left the entire script I wrote for this in the description so you can follow along. Keep in mind it isn't exactly the same as the video because I wrote it backwards and I didn't notice that until I was just editing this, so it's a little bit of a mess. Yeah, at least I learned